All right. Welcome to Board of Adjustment meeting, August 27th. I'm going to call this meeting to order. We'll start off with Pledge of Allegiance and invocation. If you guys will join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all. Mayor Julian, you can please.
Heavenly Father, thanks that making decisions here.
Amen. All right, first things first, we have to approve the agenda. We have the agenda before us tonight. Anyone have any questions or modification? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve it.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. It's unanimous. Next is previous minutes. And these might be shortest minutes that I have ever seen. So, assuming nobody has any questions about them, I'll entertain a motion to approve those.
I make a motion that we approve previous meeting minutes.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. All right, we have two items in front of us tonight. They're both quasi-judicial hearings, which means that we can only consider testimony from expert. At this time, anyone who plans to be testifying tonight, they could step over here and get sworn in, and then we'll get started.
Just to clarify, we can have fact witnesses who are not experts, but there are certain topics where we need expert testimony.
Okay. I always defer to Dan, whatever Dan says. All right, thank you, guys. If there's nobody else, we'll go ahead and start with new business number one. It's a variance application. I will go ahead and open the public hearing, and Jeff, if you can present it to us.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. Tonight you have a variance application in front of you for 147 Clove Hitch Lane. That's located in the Coble Farms neighborhood. This variance, in fact, so if you've read the home is built, and once the foundation survey was presented to the town and to the property owner, it was determined that the home was built at the corner 2 feet too close to the street. And so that's the request, is sort of a 2-foot variance for the corner of the home. And the applicant is here and their representative, so we can answer any questions, or y'all can ask any questions of them, and they may have a presentation. But it's essentially a a 2-foot variance. The required setback for the front is, I want to say it's 20 feet? Yes, 20 feet, and they're requesting 18 feet. For the majority of the home, it is at the 20-foot setback, 21 feet to be exact, but this corner is a little over the setback line. I can answer any questions that you have.
When site plans are submitted to for approval, what is the requirement for showing setbacks on the?
So a plot plan is usually submitted along with building plans that shows setbacks from front, sides, and the rear. And in this case, a plot plan was submitted, and that's Exhibit B in your packet, and it indicated a 21-foot front setback. Staff looked at that and went forward with the building permit. I think it was a surprise to both the applicant and staff once they revealed, the original survey was wrong, the plot plan was wrong, corner was over the setback line.
Is there a provision that we have for a surveyor that they must show the shortest distance to the setback?
Yes, yes.
That was the drop in communication there.
Correct,
Surveyor
yes.
noted the front and the side, and truthfully, what I do, you guys look at a stamp survey and it has the numbers you're looking for.
Right.
And so, all right, I wanted to figure out where the ball was dropped. So there's been no change in actual placement of the house between
Correct.
the original survey and the last survey.
Correct.
Just have noticed, shortest distance is actually over here.
Correct.
Okay. That's the only question I have. Anything else for Jeff?
Yeah, I got a question. So I guess technically the house is in violation. It was an oversight. But I guess what is typically done if there is a violation or
Yeah, so this
something
would
like
be a violation of the ordinance, the Unified Development Ordinance. And if staff had known about this, let's say during construction or even after it was constructed, we would have issued a zoning, a letter of, that this is not in compliance with the zoning ordinance, given the applicant, the property owner, 10 days to correct such violation or to file for a variance, in which case the property owner did file for a variance. If for whatever reason they didn't file for a variance, that notice of violation would go for 10 days, and then there would be subsequent fines of $50, $100, and $200, any subsequent fines after that for the infraction. So that would have been the normal course of business if we had caught this without the applicant sort of alerting us to this issue.
When did they find out they were over the line?
I think when that foundation survey came to them right at the end of the project, they I guess part of their closing paperwork had a survey done to close the property, and that's when the setback violation was found. And pretty much from that day forward, they've been working with the town to get before you tonight.
All right, any other questions? Yeah. Is there anyone else that's presenting tonight for this?
Not from staff. I
Okay.
do believe the applicant has some folks who might speak to you all.
That's fine.
Okay?
Thank you, Jeff.
Good evening. My name is Marie Farmer. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, which is NVR Inc., and I'm joined by the prospective homeowners for the house. Joyce and Jillian Stephen are here tonight. And before we would begin, I would like to request that our application, the exhibits that we submitted, our presentation and the staff report be accepted into the record. All right. So Jeff did a great job giving a summary of where we're at. The property in question is a .17 acre lot located on Clove Hitch Lane, just off of Rolls Church Road. It is, as described, a brand new single-family ranch home that has been constructed as a part of the Coble Farms community developed by Ryan Homes. The applicant relied in good faith on an approved building permit and site plan to construct the home. However, as described, following construction, an updated survey did reveal the 1.5 foot encroachment into the front setback. That was not shown on the site plan, and that was because of a drawing error. So the applicant did not know that this was an issue, constructed the home, then found out about it right after construction, and immediately contacted the town to find out what they could do to remedy the situation. And Joyce and Jillian Stephen are under contract to purchase the home, but they cannot close until the applicant resolves this matter. And so as you can see, a picture on the left, that is the fully constructed home, and then on the right, you can see the survey that revealed the 1.5 foot encroachment. And so our request tonight is, instead of demolishing and reconstructing the existing structure, we are requesting a 2-foot variance from the 20-foot setback requirement for the front-loaded dwellings in the R6 district to permit the existing conditions as shown on the survey. So in other words, the request is simply to allow for a minimum 18-foot front setback instead of the 20-foot setback. So the home buyer can close on the home and move in. And this will legalize that slight encroachment. And so with that, we have 2 witnesses that we're going to call tonight. We would like to start by calling Jeremy Keeney. He is with Morris and Ritchie Associates. And so I would ask if Mr. Keeney can come up. And Mr. Keeney, please state your name and address for the board, your qualifications, and explain your role in this project.
Good evening, Board. My name is Jeremy Keeney. I'm with Morris and Ritchie Associates. We're an architecture, engineering, land planning, and land surveying firm. I lead our Raleigh Triangle office. We are located at 530 Hinton Pond Road in Knightdale, North Carolina. I've been with MRA for 5 years and have 22 years in engineering and surveying experience. I got a bachelor's of civil engineering from NC State University. I have a professional engineering license and a professional land surveying license in the state of North Carolina. I've been licensed as a PLS since 2009 and licensed as a PE since 2012. My areas of expertise and experience include site design, infrastructure design, land planning, and surveying. MRA provided Ryan Homes with the site plans for the Cobble Farm subdivision for the individual plot plans that were used to pull the building permit for the home that's in question. I supervised the survey that was conducted that revealed the encroachment, and have been working with staff and the applicants to help get here tonight to request this variance. I'm familiar with the UDO requirements of the town of Anger that are applicable to this site, as well as the setbacks.
And so at this time, based on his experience and education in this field, we would like to tender Mr. Keeney as an expert in civil engineering, site design, and surveying. That's all right. All right, Mr. Keeney.
As you see here on the slide that's shown, this is a snip of the plot plan that was provided to Ryan Homes, and Ryan Homes then submitted to the town on behalf to pull the building permit. It was then approved for building permit. What you see here is this is lot 95, which is the lot in question. So you see the parcel lines on the outside, they're the bigger bold lines. And then there's multiple lines going along on the inside. Coming from the street, you see from the Clove Hitch Lane label there's the curb and gutter that's supposed to represent, and then the sidewalk, the right-of-way of the street. And then there's also a utility easement followed by a setback line that has a little bit of a break in there between where it comes from the straight portion of the road into the cul-de-sac. So the unique part about this particular lot is that it sits right there at the start of the cul-de-sac. As you see with the shape of the house, typically the part closest to the street is the garage. And so the dimension was pulled from the garage, the face of the garage of the house. In this particular case, the cul-de-sac then bends in, and so the corner of the house that typically isn't of concern ended up being the one that is closest to the right-of-way. And then when drawing these, you have to have try to depict the different types of lines and setbacks using different styles. And so sometimes when you have a dashed line, it just leaves a gap in an inopportune location, which is kind of what happened here. Again, as I said, we gave these plans to Ryan Holmes, and Ryan Holmes then submitted to the town to pull the permit. So after construction was complete, we conduct a final as-built survey that depicts all of the driveways, the home itself, and the improvements on the lot to be provided to Ryan Holmes and to the potential buyers. At this time, it was revealed that the encroachment, as you see here on the right of the home, was actually closer than what we had originally thought, which would have been the garage normally there on the left. The town's UDO requires a 20-foot setback for front-loaded dwellings in the R6 district. I will say that they also have a distinction for a rear-loaded town, so that's just basically which way the car enters, whether it's from the front of the home or the rear of the home. In this case, it is a front-loaded home, but in the rear-loaded, they actually allow a 15-foot front setback. And a lot of that is because what they're concerned with, some of what's concerned with is the garage face and the location of that to the street, so there's adequate parking in the driveway. And so again, I'll like to point out that it does meet the intent there at the garage face. So strict application of the 20-foot requirement would require reconstruction of the home. It could occur in a couple different ways. One would be to demolish approximately 30% of the roof and rebuild the house there with about a 45-degree angle to stay out of the 20-foot front setback. This would provide a little bit of an odd curb appeal, and it would also lose some square footage of the house, and then also would take time in trying to get all that accomplished, and would keep the potential buyers from moving in. The other option would be to kind of tear it down and start over, which this would be even more time, probably in the range of 6 months or more. So the purpose, of the front setback is to provide that adequate separation between the front of the house and the street, as we talked about. Again, I'll say, the front facade, the total width of the house here is just over 40 feet wide, and only about 3 feet of that far corner is what encroaches into the setback. And this isn't one where, this isn't a portion of the house where there's an entryway or a garage or anything. It is simply just a corner of the wall. So the remainder of the frontage exceeds the front setback requirement. In these areas, the front setback ranges from 20.8 feet to 33.8 feet, making the average front setback over 20 feet. Even with the requested front setback encroachment, the existing cul-de-sac provides a greater separation between the houses across the street. So since the cul-de-sac is there, it actually spaces the houses further apart from each other across the street and in the area of the house. So it's not like the houses are getting closer together due to the encroachment. The town's UDO allows certain structures also, like uncovered porches, decks, patios, and some architectural features like bay windows, chimneys, or heating units to encroach into the setback up to 3 feet. While this isn't for any of those requests, it is noted that there's some examples already where there's allowances for encroachments into that 20-foot front setback for these kind of non-movement portions. The home is also otherwise in compliant with all other dimensional requirements of the UDO. The lot meets the minimum 6,000 square feet that's required, the minimum lot width of 50 feet, the 5-foot side setbacks and 15-foot rear setbacks, and the maximum height of 35 feet. So, any questions for me?
A couple.
Okay.
So would you go back a couple of slides, please? Another one? Now, this is not my profession. However, that gap seems very specifically placed. In my opinion, it looks like that line goes through there. That could be potential. I'm wondering if there was any question of that encroachment before this final survey, because I empathize with the potential buyers. This is not in any way something that they should have to deal with. So, were you the original? You said you submitted the.
I've been involved. I wasn't the one that specifically submitted these permit plans, but I have been involved with the project during that time. Yes. Now, I will say that it was not intentional. We were not aware of it. We were actually the ones that called it out and began the process to try to work through it to say, hey, it was missed.
Because that space is wider than the spaces adjacent to it along, the upper curve, and then below it, those gaps are much smaller. So that reads to me that potentially oversteps, even at just this point.
Yes, ma'am. Well, like I said, it was something that got missed. That gap was there, whether it's from something that's inadvertently deleted or just got left off. Like I said, typically that's not the corner of the house we're worried about with the front setback.
In this circumstance, though, it is.
In this circumstance, it is. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it's not. It's not similar to even the two adjacent properties.
Agreed. No, I'm not denying that, and it got missed in this particular situation.
I only have one question for you. You're not going to like it, so I'm sorry. Are you, and by association, your company, taking responsibility for the error?
Yes, sir.
I respect you saying that. When we look at this, we don't want this to happen. Looking for somebody to blame. I respect you for taking the blame.
We have been assisting and running mostly point on this since the day it was found.
Yep. I appreciate that. That was the question.
You had mentioned that in order to, I guess if you were to demolish part of the house, it would take approximately 30% of the roof, or you said something about 30%.
That's the rough estimate in order to get enough of the roof back so that they can come in and replace the wall area. Okay.
So would it essentially just be like a 3 foot by 3 foot right triangle?
More or less, yes, sir.
Okay. And I guess also, is the house across the street from it in the same situation?
I do not believe so. I don't know if they finished building that one off.
You kind of had it in another slide when you were showing the whole neighborhood, but it looks like the shape of that house works with the setback line.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you can see the line there. Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keeney. And very briefly, Ms. Stephen just wanted to address the board, if I could call Ms. Stephen.
First, good evening, everybody, and thank you. My name's Jillian Stevens, and my mother and I are the prospective homeowners of this house in Copple Farms. We picked this house because of the surrounding open space, and we wanted to move down here to slow down. Since we've moved down here, we've been living out of a suitcase with friends and now in a Verbo. Due to this issue, it's put my mom in a little bit of distress. She just turned 80. I appreciate you considering this variance for us and not giving us any further delay or reconstructing our home. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stephen. Time permitting, I'd like to briefly summarize the competent material and substantial evidence you've heard before you in the form of live testimony and the exhibits that were submitted as a part of the application to show how it addresses each of the 4 required findings of fact. So the first is the strict application of the front setback requirement does create an unnecessary hardship. You heard from Mr. Keeney. He explained that strict application of the front setback requirement would require demolition and reconstruction of a brand new home, which would impact the square footage and the curb appeal and could take up to 6 months. You also heard from Ms. Stephen that being unable to close on the home and move in has been difficult for her and her mother, and they are anxious to resolve this issue. The second is that the hardship results from conditions that are peculiar to the property, such as location, size, or topography. Mr. Keeney explained that the curvature of the front lot line created an unusual setback measurement, which led to the drawing error on the plans. To be clear, the shape and location of the lot are not personal circumstances of the applicant because these are conditions that exist regardless of the property owner, and the shape and location of the lot are also not conditions that are common to the neighborhood or the general public. The majority of the homes in Coble Farms in the subdivision either front on a neighborhood street or a cul-de-sac, not both, and therefore they have straight front lot lines and predictable front setback measurements. The third, that the hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant or the property owner. Mr. Keeney explained that it was his firm that created and provided the applicant with the plans that had the drawing error, which did not show the setback encroachment. The applicant relied on these plans in good faith to pull the approved building permit and construct the home in compliance with those approved plans. As such, the hardship was not self-created. And finally, the requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance, such that public safety is secured and substantial justice achieved. Mr. Keeney explained that the purpose of the front setback requirement is to provide adequate separation between the front of the house and the street, and that the average front setback for this home is well over 20 feet. He also explained that the 50-foot street and the 100-foot wide cul-de-sac provide even greater separation for this home between it and the homes across the street. He also explained that this request is consistent with setback exceptions in the UDO and that the home is otherwise compliant with all other dimensional requirements. And so because the applicant has met each of the required findings of fact with competent material and substantial evidence, again in the form of live live testimony and exhibits, we respectfully request that the board approve the requested variance. And we'd be happy to answer any further questions from the board at this time. Thank you.
Any further questions from the board? All right, with that, I'll close the hearing. All right. Now we're going to discuss amongst ourselves up here. I'll start off by saying there is an interpretation that I see. So first of all, thank you guys for coming out here. I realize that I'm in this industry myself. It's a sticky situation and looks like a bunch of mistakes, but not a lot of people to point at. The one issue that I could see something that did not go in your favor was item 3, where the hardship didn't result from actions taken by the applicant. While the error was made by the surveyor was hired by the applicant to build the house. And so I could see an interpretation where you might have a problem with that. That being said, I feel like looking at Exhibit B, and we can have them bring it up if you guys want to bring Exhibit B back up. If you look at Exhibit B, it seems clear to me that there's no reason that they would intentionally try to cheat into this corner, given how much room they have in the back of the house. It doesn't look like some others that we've seen where there was room for a house this big in the back because they couldn't go back any further for any other reason. So, I mean, I truly believe myself this is just a mistake. And now the house is built, and that's how that goes. You know, town staff, they get a survey, it is stamped by a surveyor, it shows what the town understands to be the closest point to the setback line, so the town approves it. and the town approved it, so the builder built it. And then at the end, a mistake was discovered, which is unfortunate for everybody, and certainly when we're talking about hardship, in this case, we're talking about potentially a whole house being torn down and rebuilt again as a worst case, or a modification, which would be a serious modification to this house. Because it is not easy to cut 2 feet off the corner of a house like that. So that's my opinion. Guys have any input?
You're exactly right.
I get a question. This, and maybe Jeff can answer this. So I guess the encroachment is in the front side setback and the side. I mean, because it's kind of in the corner.
Well, it would be considered the front setback.
Okay.
Yeah. It's compliant with the side setback.
Okay. Well, because I was thinking if it came straight down, would it make would it be
Well, the
20
property
feet?
line runs along the right-of-way line, and so the right-of-way line, that's what's peculiar to this. This is their point that they're making, is that there's some peculiarity to this lot, that it's not rectangle in shape, and that the right-of-way is curved and straight on this particular piece of property.
So I counter that with the peculiarity of it has been obvious from the beginning. So to me, it seems as though if we're this close, we probably should back it up a couple feet and get it out of the iffy line or lack thereof that exists. Considering how far back the neighboring home is, this seems avoidable.
Yeah. Well, and I guess my question too. So, yeah, I don't know, since because it's off to the side of the house. I don't know. I was just trying to think of how it. Yeah. So, do you always use the front setback for any kind of anything that would be in the front, even if it's also in the side?
Yes, that front corner would be the we now know that front corner, if you're facing the home, the front right corner is the most closest to the right-of-way line when it begins in the cul-de-sac, in the bulb of the cul-de-sac.
Okay.
So I see plenty of good argument why, we understand what setbacks are here for. And I see good argument that allowing this wouldn't necessarily take away from any of the intentions of what setbacks are. I feel certain that this mistake will not happen again. This surveyor or builder or probably the town in general, because we're all going to be looking at this now. We're going to remember that before, and they almost had their house down. So. Jim, you have anything to add? All right, I'll give you guys.
We'll just remind the board that for a variance, requires a 4/5 vote.
Okay, 4/5, that'd be 4 of us. All right, it looks like we're ready. If Jeff, do you have our little cheat sheet handy for us somewhere? If not, I
Liz,
can
if
do
you
it
wanna
without it, but
put
it's nice
my
for everyone.
presentation up, I can bring that up for you. There we go. There we go. All right, thank you. Is this in as well? It's okay. No, they got me. There we go. There you go. There.
All right. So for this to be approved tonight, you must get 4 of us to vote in favor of all 4 of these statements. With that, I will read one. We'll vote on each one. Go from there. All right. If you agree with statement A, unnecessary hardship will result from the strict application of the ordinance, please raise your hand. If you agree. That's unanimous. For B, if you agree that the hardship results from conditions that are peculiar to the property, such as location, size, or topography, hardships resulting from personal circumstances, as well as hardships resulting from conditions that are common to the neighborhood or the general public, may not be the basis for granting a variance. A variance may be granted when necessary and appropriate to make a reasonable accommodation under the Federal Fair Housing Act for a person with disability. If you agree with statement B, please raise your right hand. Opposed? It's 4-1, so we'll move on. On C, if you agree with the statement that the hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant or the property owner, the act of purchasing property with knowledge that circumstances exist that may justify the granting of a variance shall not be regarded as a self-creating hardship. You agree with statement C, please raise your right hand. If you disagree, please raise your hand. It's 3-2. We'll go ahead and do D as a formality anyway. For D, if you agree that the requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved, if you agree with that, raise your right hand. And that's unanimous. So, since we did not pass on item C, then we cannot grant this variance.
Mayor, if I may, just briefly, the issue that we do have tonight, where an applicant has relied on a licensed surveyor and a survey, has actually been heard and decided by the North Carolina Court of Appeals. So if I may briefly, under North Carolina law, for a setback variance is not self-created if the applicant relied in good faith on what appeared to be a valid survey prepared by a licensed surveyor. And so Mr. Keeney has testified that he has been licensed as a professional land surveyor since 2009 and a licensed professional engineer since 2012. And that is one that prepared the plan permit that supervised that survey when it was conducted. Error and not miss the owner. And so we would ask, we're happy to provide, we actually have that case law. We're happy to provide that to the town attorney. And if you all would like to review it, we would. If I may approach.
Sure, please. Thank you.
And if I may, we have highlighted some of the pertinent sections. So if you turn to, I think it's the third to last page, you will see what the Court of Appeals specifically contemplated in that case, which was a setback variance.
If this would change either of you guys' votes, I don't even know if it's appropriate to vote again.
If they have to vote a certain way.
All right. I appreciate you bringing that to us. So, as a show of
Like
good
she knew
faith,
that.
and as long as Dan tells me I can't do it, I'm going to read and we will vote on C again. And then
So this is essentially telling us how we have to vote. So I just want to make sure this is clear. Because if it's precedent's been set, that's fine. Yep. Right. Seems like a easy way to.
Yeah, I just to be nice, I'm going to do it again. And after that, that's it. So I'll recall for item C. If you agree that the hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant or the property owner, you agree with that statement, raise your right hand. Unanimous. All right, so unless, Dan, you tell me I have to go through all four of them again. The other three already passed.
I think this was the only one that didn't pass, so.
Okay,
Now, we have a fourth fifth vote on that particular provision.
all right.
You don't
All right.
have to redo the rest.
In light of that, and that was kind of weird, necessarily like it, but, yes. So in light of that, I guess the variance is granted. Cool. That's it for that one, right? All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks for putting up with us. All right, we're going to move on to number 2, the special use permit application from Triangle Land Partners. I will open the public hearing, and then Jeff will start us off.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight you have a special use permit request for a new subdivision, Austin Meadows. It's a planned unit development. There's some with the slide. There should be a total of 111 units, and I think there's a difference in the site plan. So I think the site plan says, or the subdivision plan says 38.
It's all
Single
over the
family?
place here.
Yeah.
It
And
says 61 on
61.
the cover. Application says 73.
Yeah, so
So that was my first question for
yeah,
you
so the
tonight.
applicant will definitely but as depicted on the subdivision plan, there are 111 units, either single family or townhomes.
I think I counted 64 on the site.
Okay.
Sorry. 68 townhomes. So that's a third different number. 61, 73 on the permit, 68 on the plot.
Yes, they are. Yeah, let me just finish with the introduction, and then
Sure.
they can,
Sorry.
they can clarify the lot count. So this is along Kennebec Road. You can see here's Kennebec. This is Camden Place. This is a new subdivision that's under construction now. This is Junie Road here. This subdivision, Austin Meadows, does connect over to Camden Place with a street that's here. This is the current zoning map of the town. You can see that Camden Place is here. It was a PUD that was approved a couple 3 years ago. And this is the property in question here. So this is located within the Wake County land use plan area. And when we had this rezoning probably earlier in the year, we indicated to the board that this was not in the town's future land use plan, but within Wake County's land use plan area. And that Wake County has this area classified as community. And I'll just read a little excerpt from Wake County's comprehensive plan. Community areas are lands already in municipal, corporate limits, or municipal extraterritorial jurisdiction, and lands on the fringe of these areas for the municipality to expand and grow into. Public utilities currently exist in the majority of the corporate limit areas, and plans to extend utilities exist in other areas. Through land use and comprehensive plans, each of the municipalities have identified key locations for development and redevelopment in the community areas. And these plans also call for frequent street connections appropriate densities and mixes of uses. The plan goes on to say that the community desired characteristics are building heights between 1 and 5 stories, street character, walkable, complete streets, connected grid, transit ready, residential densities between 4 and 12 units to an acre. Primary uses are single family and townhomes, duplexes, triplexes, and multifamily. And then secondary uses within that community designation would be community commercial centers, small employment office centers, and neighborhood scale mixed use. Planning board heard this at their, I think, July meeting and recommended approval. Oh, no, this didn't go to planning board. I'm sorry. PUDs do not go to planning board. They will moving forward.
Okay.
So this has not been before the planning board. Since it's a special use permit, it only comes to the Board of Adjustment. The applicant is here, and I can answer any questions that you have. Prior to the applicant
I
speaking.
think we can move on to the
Okay.
applicant. Yeah.
After evening, board. My name is Scott Brown with 4D Site Solutions, 409 Chicago Drive, Suite 112, Fayetteville, North Carolina. We are the engineers and surveyors on behalf of the applicant. I do have a traffic engineer with me here tonight that he will speak in reference to the TIA that was completed and recommendations that was forwarded based on the TIA from DOT. But I kind of want to summarize give a little bit more in depth and detail than what Jeff had gave, especially as far as the lot count. There are a total of 111 units. There are 73 townhomes and 38 single-family homes. This is we have been before the board, not this particular board, but several years ago, we had about three of these similar projects come before the board. So this is our fourth PUD in probably the last 5 or 6 years with Anger, and the property that we're adjacent to, which is Camden Place, we brought that before the board when it was approved back when. So it's kind of if you look at the aerial photograph, it's almost an infill. Camden Place had a stub on it intended for future development. And so what we're doing is we're picking up the end of that stub and looping it back into Kennebec Road. The same type layout. It's going to have single-family homes, townhomes, the same lot size, same setbacks as what was originally approved in Camden Place. It will be served by public water and sewer is available. We have done fire flow testing out there on site. It has been reviewed initially by Public Works and by town staff and the town engineer. And we've adjusted, made comments that TRC had during the process, and that's why we stand here before you tonight. We do know, like I said, understand that traffic is a big concern. Traffic engineers speak to that, but we're looking at potentially 2 stormwater ponds on the site based on trying to mimic the existing drainage patterns as close as possible. Setbacks is listed on there. We are having some walking trails throughout the development, so sidewalks throughout it, and then we got walking trails around it, some isolated pocket park type deals, open space areas for large park area in the back corner along the abandoned railroad track. So I would be glad at this point in time to entertain any site-specific questions. Then I'll turn it over to the traffic engineer, and then I'd like to come back at the end when he's finished and kind of wrap it up. So if anybody's got any specific questions related to the layout or, like I said, the confusion that was in the application between the count, but there are 111 units, 73 towns, 38 single-family lots, with the single-family lots button up to Camden Place, which is what you have single-family lots on the end of that road stub, so it would continue into single-family, and then you'd have townhomes as you make your way back out to Kennebec.
All right, we have two site plans in our packet. One of them's dated June and one of them's dated January. Is there a difference between these two?
I would imagine the June one is one you should be using because that would have had probably TRC adjustments done to it through
Okay.
TRC. So you can throw the January one in the trash. Don't pay any attention to it. Yes, sir. Trash it.
Have a hidden trash can.
Yes, sir. I'll
Um,
get it up for you after the meeting.
Are you, if you can't answer this, that's fine, but you're
Yes,
the
sir.
site man, so
Yep.
do you know, I understand that parking requirements
Yes, sir.
there are none for a PUD, but are you aware what the parking is
Yes.
going to be?
Yes, I have it listed on here. Because that was one of the purposes, one of the things that we ran into on the other developments, is parking is always a big concern. Especially when you have, people coming over to visit and you got a townhome, not a whole lot of extra space out in front of the park like you would a single-family home. So we have provided overflow parking in between, which would have also the same location as your mail kiosk. I'm looking here trying to count see if I had the total parkings listed on here.
Yeah, I'm interested specifically in like a per townhome parcel. How many spaces are on
On a
that?
townhome parcel, you'll be able to have up to 3. There's a garage, each one of them has a garage, so you potentially have a car in the garage, and the driveways are deep enough and wide enough to have the flexibility to have 2 cars parked side by side with one
Okay.
in the garage. So you would have 3 on the townhomes, at least that many, or 3 to 4 on a single-family home, depending on how you do your driveway. And then in addition to that, you have, looks like maybe about 50 or so, 40 to 50 in the overflow area.
And all the garages are street facing. There's no alleyway.
That's correct. All of them are street facing.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
You had said 3 parking for the townhomes.
You can get up
So-
to 3. You'll be able to get up to 3. Now, that's not saying everybody will put 3 up there, but you could physically put 3 vehicles, 1 in the garage and 2 on the driveway.
Okay. Yeah, because I saw that the current ones, there was just, for the townhomes, it was a single car garage.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
One in the garage and 2 side by side on the driveway.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, whether or not people use that, we understand. It's not
That's right.
anything you can control.
That's right. And like I
Providing
said, we try to provide as much overflow as we can as practical, so it don't like a sea of parking out there. But because that is one of the things you hear a lot of complaints about is we don't have enough parking. We don't have enough parking. So we try to account for that whenever we are putting these plans together to make sure we provide plenty ample parking for what we feel like is ample parking.
So you mentioned this is going to connect to the other subdivision on the south end.
Yes,
Is
sir.
it also going to connect to the east? When you don't have the site plan up here, but I'm looking right at it right now. I didn't see anything that showed it with the other sub.
Right, we've got a future stub into the property to the, below us there on the page. That's undeveloped property. There's potential, just like there was whenever we did Camden Place, we put
Yeah.
a stub out. There's potential for that to be developed in the future. To the north, that's really just going to, open space into the abandoned railroad right of way. There's really not much potential to the north of the page, but to the south of the page, there is this possibility in the future, if somebody was to come and develop, Public Street could extend to the south, page south.
Do you guys own, because I know it's like a horseshoe, do you own the middle, or is that still,
No, sir.
okay.
My client has options on what you see listed there is the only thing we currently have options on.
Okay. And do you expect, so I think, Jeff, you were saying that it's not in the long-term plan, but do you expect this to, I guess, to be annexed into the town, or I guess that's,
It-
oh, it has,
It
okay.
was, that was what we done a couple of months ago because we couldn't come before you tonight until we were annexed into the town. and
Yeah,
all.
okay,
So
that makes sense.
It has been annexed and adopted zoning into the town to
Okay.
match the Camden Place development.
What's the estimated range of people do you expect that'll be living in just this?
And just this section here.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you got a total of 111 units. If you have, say, 3 people into townhomes, 4 people into single-family homes, I mean, 3 to 4, 111, anywhere from between 350 and 450 be my guess. I mean,
Okay.
just throwing out a wild guess.
And I guess in total with the current Camden, you know about how many numbers people.
I don't recall. It's been several years since I did Camden. I don't remember how many total units is in Camden. I know it's bigger, obviously bigger than what we got right here. I don't recall the total count in Camden.
Oh wow. Okay.
In Camden? Okay.
People. I'm not,
No, oh, people. Okay.
you're talking a lot of people.
Well,
Yes.
mainly Kennebec, because that's where the
Yeah.
exit is.
So a little 3,500.
We'll save the traffic for the traffic.
Oh, I will.
So
Yeah,
you,
he's loaded for bear, so bring it on whenever you get him up here.
Okay.
so you had mentioned some of the open space on
sir.
the west side. So kind of west in the middle, it looks like a fenced area.
That would be kind of a bark park area for dogs, dog park. And then you've got the walking trail and all around behind it, and we'll enhance it with some trees. And you've got a little bit of maybe a pocket park or something up front that we could put some enhancement in right off of Kennebec Road. And again, the open space for the storm pond on the south end of the project with a walking trail scattered throughout it. And we'll tie into the trail amenity that Camden Place has along the railroad. They've got a walking path along the railroad, so we'll marry up into the one that they have there. So it'll be from the outside looking in, when you drive through it, it'll look like it's all one
Okay.
amenity.
Is there a playground anywhere on here?
There, we don't currently have one shown on here. That's not been discussed or decided on. So as of right now, I would have to tell you no, there is no playground at the present time.
Okay. Because my concern would be, so on the southeastern part, there is some open space, but it's around a stormwater pond.
Yes, sir.
On the northwest side, there's some open space, but it's around a stormwater pond.
Mm-hmm.
On the west central, there's a dog park. And then on the north central, next to the road, there's some open land. But that's not a whole lot of land. I mean, if a quarter to a half of the people going to be living there are children, it's not a whole lot of open space for them to run around. Otherwise, they'd be running through the streets.
Right, well, they got the trails they can run on and run up and down the edge of the railroad track. I mean, young'uns is gonna be young'uns. You put a playground out there, they're gonna run and play in the dirt versus playing in the playground. But whenever Sean comes up to do the presentation on the traffic, I can mention it, my clients here, and I'll mention it to them and see if that's something that they would be willing to consider. But the only thing I can present to you right now is that we've got the amenities sort of similar to what we had in the other developments. I know Camden Place has a kind of a clubhouse pool area in it, but like I said, we're not necessarily tying together other than extending to it. We're not necessarily a true extension off of Camden Place.
Yeah, because I drove into the current Camden Place and I saw the sign for the amenities 2025, so it looked like a good sized pool.
Yes, sir.
At least a clubhouse.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering with that if there's any kind of open space for like outside of the pool area or whatnot, because otherwise, I mean, it's I guess you could run into the woods or run into the streets, but that's the only.
Yeah, they got plenty. I mean, they
only-
could almost make a loop and all them sidewalks and the trails connecting the ponds up, and then you got the trail along the railroad track there, and we're gonna have our two nice sized private pools there with the storm ponds. You go out there and you have some waterfront out there on it. So, and like I said, you're gonna have plenty of grass area, plenty of trees. They should have to run all the juice out of them they want to run up and down through there. Wear it out.
I don't see a whole lot of open space for that there. I mean, in two, they're going to be running around a storm pond, so that's
That's
kind
cool.
of.
I mean, the storm pond's gonna look good. It ain't gonna be a dump.
No,
I mean,
I've
it's gonna be maintained.
I've seen the current one, but at the
Yes,
same
sir.
time, it's like you kick a ball, goes in the storm pond, game over kind of thing. So I'm just concerned that it seems like the goal was let's see how many homes we can fit in here with just the density of
Well, and if you look at the density count that's on there, you've got an overall density of 5.3 units per acre. And I believe if you compare that back to Camden Place has a higher density count than what we're proposing here. I mean, we're not, and if I know you're not, if you look at the Wake County land use plan, part of this was in Wake County. Wake County had it listed at a higher density use than what we're proposing it. So, I mean, we could have squeezed more units in. We chose not to squeeze more units in. We felt like we got adequate open space. Obviously, that's a matter of opinion. And so, like I said, whenever I sit back down, I'll mention about the playground, see if that's something that they're willing to entertain or to explore. But I can't commit to it standing right here.
Yeah, honestly, looking, the only place I could think of to put more homes would be if you take out the parking lot in the center. So
Well, those ponds are kind of placeholders, and more they're probably oversized, and you can put some on the side. I mean, there's always a way. Where there's a wheel, there's a way.
I mean, I know storm ponds are, at least my understanding, they're required, at least.
They are required. The
So-
town requires them up through the 10-year storm of it. So, and that's what Camden Place has. I think it's got 3 or 4 in it. So, and they're strategically placed based on how the property drains. But based on the open space requirement and what we provided, we feel like we've satisfied the intent of the ordinance with the open space.
To be fair, your density is closer to 5.94 if we have the correct property count.
The 111 is correct.
111.
Yes, sir.
8.6.
Yep.
Just point.
Good deal. So we're, I said, I don't know what Camden Place is. I want to think it's close to the 6 range. It may be over the 6 range. I don't know exactly what the total density count is on Camden, but I don't want to get it confused. I mean, other than tying to a street stub and looking similar, they're two different projects.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there was some discussion, maybe what we picked up on some discussion during the TRC meeting about the name. Austin Meadows is the name of this one. Like I said, it was at a Camden Place too. Not necessarily can it be. It can be if it helps eliminate confusion in the town. Like I said, we're not stuck on the name.
Jeff, do you recall offhand what Camden Place was, just because it's an adjacent property?
168 units.
Per how many acres?
Oh, we can find that out.
I'm sorry, I don't know how to pop that.
Yeah, it's larger than this one.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So my biggest concern is just you'll have 800, 900, 1,000 people
Mm-hmm.
there, and not a whole lot of room for 300, 500 kids to run around.
Understand?
Yeah, does it have an HOA?
Yes. And the HOA would be responsible for maintaining all the common area outside of the privately owned property, which would be your parking lot, your open space areas, your ponds, maintaining all the drainage outside of the right-of-way. Anything that's the town does not maintain.
What's the length of the footage on the egress road?
From
I can't.
Kennebec to the first tee or all the way back to Camden Place?
I guess just on the north, the north side, or I guess where you would exit out onto Kennebec.
Okay, hold tight. I know part of TRC, we have to list street lengths.
Yeah, it needs to be at least 150 feet.
Oh, it's more than 150 feet.
Okay.
It's way more than that. I'd have to, I could get that whenever I set back down for you. I I don't see it right off the top of my head here. It may not be on this sheet that I got in my hand. It may be on one of the other sheets.
But you could stipulate that it's over 100.
Oh, yeah, it's a fact, it's over 150 feet.
Okay.
Yes, sir. From Kennebec back to that first intersection of Ruby Field and Hunter's Trace, is that what you're referring to?
I don't know where
The
Hunter's.
road name should be on your sheet.
Yeah.
Across from Unit 105 and 106, back to Kennebec, is that the distance you're asking about?
Mine pronounced too small. Let me see if I can pull up PDF.
Eric,
Yeah.
are you referring to this area right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's longer than 150 feet.
Okay.
Any more questions for him at this time?
I'm gonna step aside, let traffic engineer come up, and then I'll be back to join you in a few minutes.
Great.
Hello, I'm Sean Brennan with DRMP. I'm a professional engineer. DRMP completed the traffic study for this development. And I heard some concerns about the amount of traffic on Kennebec Road. We have a traffic count from 2015 on Kennebec Road, which is pretty old. That's from the NCDOT database. And it is 1,300 cars a day. So we could get that updated count. We could take new tube counts. But that is the information that we've got from NCDOT. Based on our level of service tables, we're experiencing acceptable levels of service at the intersections that we studied, which are Kennebec Road and Junny Road, and Kennebec Road and Amanda Cassie Road, Amanda Cassie Lane, and our site driveway as well. We're experiencing levels of service of A and B at all of those intersections. Are there any specific questions? Okay.
It might be beneficial for you to explain the rating, the A, B, C, D for the intersections.
So level of service is we measure intersection A, B, C, D, E, F. A's and B's are good. F is bad. It's determined by level, the amount of delay at the intersection. And these are unsignalized intersections, so you look at the amount of delay on the unsignalized approach, which is the minor street, and you also look at the amount of delay on the left turn movement on the major street, which, for instance, at our site driveway, you'd look at the delay turning out of the site driveway and the delay turning left into the site driveway.
2015.
The traffic counts that we got were from, at the study, hold on one second.
I think the study you did was done in March of this year.
Yeah.
I was just going to look up the traffic count date itself. March of 2024.
All right, I got a bunch of questions for you.
Okay.
All right, so let's start here. Trip generation summary.
Mm-hmm.
Your calculations were done with 38 single unit, 61 townhome. and a calculated total trips of 828. But if I do math backwards, you can correct me. I'm not an engineer. If I do math backwards to correct 61 to 73 at the same ratio, you end up with a total trip that would be about 909. That's 10% more with the difference in townhouse count. What set the numbers you've been calculating off of for this property at 10% higher than what you've actually done? Oh, this is a huge report, lots of work. I would question whether or not a 10% discrepancy like that means that any of this report is relevant in the first place, if it was done with the wrong numbers to start off.
So if the trip generation was increased slightly, I would anticipate the same recommendations back from NCDOT, which is what we got, which was a left turn lane and a right turn lane into the site driveway.
Right. You would anticipate that, but we don't know because we haven't run the numbers at 909.
Correct. Those numbers are not
for any of the information on here, not just, whether or not you need a turn lane, but for any of what we're looking at for your traffic number. So if we move past that and we go to, all right, your AADT for Kennebec Road, I mean, you pointed out yourself, it's from 2015, right? It's 1,300 on Kennebec Road. And we probably could concede that that number's no longer accurate, given how much increase we've seen here. Yeah. On your 2 asterisk note on that same chart, you noted that you calculated Amanda Cassie Lane by taking the peak hour count, essentially multiplying it by 10 to get to that number, right?
Yeah, so the same thing could be done with...
I did that. I pulled out my abacus. And on your figure 4...
Correct.
I looked at this over and over and over, and so you tell me if I was unfair in these calculations, but I did not look at anything over by Amanda Cassie Lane because what's the name of that road now? Is it Walter Myatt that hits Kennebec? Would kind of skew any information from that intersection because we understand that a lot of traffic comes to Walter Myatt and goes that way and wouldn't even pass. So I'm looking at the numbers that are surrounding Johnny and Kennebec because I assumed, and you can correct me, that would be a more accurate measure of the cars that would pass by this neighborhood.
I would agree with that.
All right. So I did the math on that for PM, and I added all the PMs together, got 267, multiply it by 10, not 267, 213. And that would be 2130. So by your math that you specified here, 1,300 would be reasonable to say, by your own suggested calculation, should be about 21.
That's correct. And the analysis actually analyzes during peak hours.
Yeah.
So it actually did use those numbers you're just referencing.
Okay.
The table that you're referencing that says the existing traffic count.
Yeah.
That's just to give that. I agree with you. That probably should have been.
Yeah. So
a different
table
number,
1.
But that's to give an idea of what the surrounding roadway network looks like.
Okay.
So, but the actual analysis that took place was done with the counts that were conducted in March.
Okay. That's good to know.
Yep.
Thank you for clarifying that. I got all kinds of questions for you. Hold on. You guys calculated, and I'm curious to know what you based it on, because we legally are not experts. So I'm going to ask how you figured in your section 4.2 site trip distribution and assignment. You suggested that 65% of the traffic from this neighborhood would continue Kennebec up to Amanda Cassie Lane, which I didn't even know the name of that road, but that's where the Quality Plus is, right? So 65% of this neighborhood would go that way, 15% and 15% to Johnny. So I live practically off of Johnny, but I'm curious to know why you think, or how you calculated, and maybe it's something very simple you can explain to me, that 65% went all the way to the Quality Plus and not down Johnny Road into town?
So that's based on coordination with NCDOT and the local municipality, so the town of Anger.
So
there
did some
has
of
to
our
be-
staff weigh in on those percentage numbers?
We weighed in on where they should study.
Okay,
We didn't weigh in on,
what those numbers would be?
no.
Okay,
NCDOT does have to approve the distributions.
sure.
So it is based on coordination with the Department of Transportation.
Okay,
It's part of the memorandum of understanding that outlines all the assumptions for the study.
okay. Sorry, I printed out your whole report here and I took notes all over it. Somewhere in here you said that the growth rate was 2% and that town staff had weighed in on that too?
Yeah, that's typical of a percentage of growth that these types of studies utilize.
Okay. All right, so we clarified that we're just going to disregard table 1 with that old data, and you use the new calculated data for your LOC. Which I've already forgot what it means. I know what it means, but I forgot what it spells out.
LOS is level of
LOS,
service.
level of service, right, okay. All right, so level of service for Johnny. My particular focus on the traffic aspect of this is Kennebec and Johnny.
Okay.
Because that is, if you're coming into town, that's the way you're coming. There's no better way than right down Johnny. Existing is A and A, no build is A and B, and build is A and B. What that says to me is that it's going to get worse, but we're not making it way worse on paper, so it's the same.
So that's correct. The no build and the build levels of service are the same. No build is assumed that the traffic has grown to that 2028 build year, but there's no site traffic added to that. When you add the site traffic, it's still A and B.
Okay. And then site access went from A to B, but that's understandable because there is no site right now.
Right.
So obviously, yes, there's going to be more cars coming out of the field on the Kennebec. I'm going to get to that. So, I'm sorry for hogging it. So you guys can butt in, but like, I've been scribbling all this stuff. Let me make sure I got everything on traffic. Okay, so it is my understanding that your job is to analyze and approve the flow of traffic.
Our job is to analyze the flow of traffic, and we mitigate the traffic that is generated by our development.
And
so
what
it's
you-
not necessarily to mitigate existing traffic concerns,
Sure.
but to mitigate traffic concerns that would be created by adding the site trip.
Sure. And so when you calculate your level of service, what you're looking at ultimately, because we didn't have your appendices in here, but your level of service is based basically on wait time?
That's what it comes down to. So if you go to section 6, the traffic analysis procedure, that spells it. I'll try to summarize. So it explains level of service to the best we can
Sure. No, I need you to
support.
dumb it down for me. That's fine. That's fine.
And so if you look at that table 4, it says highway capacity manual, level of service and delay. That's straight from the highway capacity manual.
Okay.
And it's got average control delay per vehicle. So that's the just average delay per vehicle at that intersection. And you can look at it per approach, or if you're doing a signalized intersection, you look at an approach and at the overall intersection.
All right. So aside from the flow of traffic and the wait time, the movement of cars themselves, you don't really factor much else into that. And I'll cut to the chase, so you don't have to stand there while I ask dumb questions. What I'm concerned about is you don't, or you're not required even in these calculations to factor safety of the road in any?
Safety is not typically part of we can pull crash data, and that's a different type of analysis.
Yeah.
But for a traffic impact analysis, the purpose is to identify impacts from the development's traffic on capacity and mitigate them.
Understood. Sure.
So the assumption that 65% of the traffic utilizing Amanda Cassie is for the obvious reason that they're going to 55, and that's the most direct.
Correct.
So, being that the intersection at 55 is a signalized intersection, I'm curious why that one wasn't taken into consideration as well. Considering that you're making the understanding that 65% of them are going to that intersection, I'm wondering why that wasn't also considered.
It's, to be honest with you, it's probably because this is approximately 100 units,
Right.
and that's not going to generate a significant percentage of traffic at that intersection to where any impact we have there would be less than 25% of the level of service impact, which is what NCDOT uses to identify needs for roadway
If there's no greater
improvements.
impact than 25%, you're basically saying there's no impact.
So if we have to mitigate our impact if we impact the level of service or the delay by 25% or greater.
All right. I'm just making an observation that the total trips corrected for this would be 909, and that is,
And we would be looking at during the peak hour,
yeah.
so it wouldn't be all.
But this is daily,
909
this is
during-
total daily traffic,
Correct.
909, corrected, for the unit count. And I mean, that's 2/3 of the entire Jenny Road in 2015. Or Kennebec, I'm sorry, from table one. Get my road names mixed up. Kennebec Road was 1,300 in 2015, and now we're looking at adding 909 to Kennebec.
During the peak hour, it would be less than 100.
But still, so we haven't seen any improvements to Kennebec Road since 2015, aside from repaving.
And I would add to that neighboring communities have been acknowledged in this process tonight. So they're being considered in terms of justifying the development because there is a development adjacent to it. So I want to just acknowledge that, you know,
Don't forget you got the cooler too.
we're considering a lot in this.
So I don't have the adjusted numbers, but in the study, it was the peak hour that was the higher number. So obviously it would still be the same if we scaled it up. That number was 73, which is 73 cars in the peak hour. That's slightly more than one car per minute.
How did you calculate? I'm just curious to know how you calculated that number. What your
Peak hours?
what your trips would be during peak hours. If you've got, even you, let's just use your old number for the sake of keeping track of it. That 828, you had 57 trips in peak hour, and you specified that peak hour was a 2-hour window in the morning from 7 to 9 a.m., right?
Mhm.
And in the evening was, forgot what that one, 4 to 6. Okay. So out of 909 trips, or sorry, 828 trips a day, you've calculated 57 trips at morning rush hour. Out of 111 units, 57 cars will leave that neighborhood between 7 and 9 a.m. to get to work or wherever they're going. What did you use to base that calculation on?
The IT trip generation manual.
Okay. And that's an industry standard thing.
Correct.
Right.
It's actually, if you take
Where are the rest of them going? Midnight? I don't understand.
So if you actually take that math that we were just doing for Kennebec Road,
Yeah.
To how we calculated the new value, not that 1,500, but taking the 10%, and if you do the same thing for this, you actually would get similar numbers.
Okay. All right, I'm going to move past that one. All right, so I have concerns, and I will raise them to you, but I understand that you did not study safety as part of your study. Honestly, I just don't know who else to ask him.
Okay.
So I'm gonna make you stand there while I ask him. All right, Kennebec Road, not as a matter of opinion, but as a matter of fact, is a relatively narrow road. I measured it on Google Maps because Wake GIS put the satellite on it for some. And it's about 20 feet wide. The white shoulder lines are painted inches from the edge of the road there. And after that, it is a lot of ditches, especially around this corner. I have concerns of safety as it pertains to welfare of the people in this area and anyone that would travel to it. Regarding the width and condition of Kennebec Road, and regarding this turn that your neighborhood is almost right up against. The entrance is very close to that turn. And I don't know, I mean, I've taken that turn. It's a blind turn. I think it would be fair to say that it's a blind turn. You can't see cars that are coming around the other side of that turn. Trying very carefully not to use my opinion or experience, but remain as factual as I can. I have concerns that the entrance of this neighborhood is awfully close to that blind, and that we are not doing any improvements to Kennebec Road because it's not required by the calculation we've done to do a turn lane or either a right turn lane into Kennebec or a center turn lane or something like that in front of this neighborhood.
I'm sorry.
No, please, go ahead.
We actually had recommendations from NCDOT.
Okay.
And with those recommendations from NCDOT, they did recommend it, even though they're not warranted from the analysis perspective.
Yeah.
They did recommend left and right turn lanes into the site drive.
On Kennebec.
On Kennebec Road.
In
turning
front of
into
this
our
sub.
site. Correct.
Okay. Is that something
That wasn't in, that
that
was
they have proposed to do?
It's a requirement of NCDOT.
Okay.
So as to get the driveway permit, another requirement of NCDOT to get the driveway, and I'm sorry, I've got 9 years of experience. I used to work at NCDOT.
Sure. No, that's great.
So part of the requirement to getting the driveway permit for NCDOT is the TIA, and then also they look at site distance of the driveway. So they'll make sure, they'll have to do a site distance investigation at NCDOT. If they find that it doesn't have adequate site distance, then there's issues.
Yeah. So you're saying that it's likely that they will end up with Kennebec Road improvement
A left turn lane
by the
and a
time
right
it gets
turn
to
lane.
DOT.
It's already gone to DOT, and
Okay.
DOT's made the recommendation. I'm sorry if it's not part of your package. I've got it on my iPad.
That's
if you'd like
fine.
to see it.
They said recommendation. Does that mean it is going to be done, or that they suggest it should be done, but it's up to the developer?
The only way that it can be waived is if it's determined that they're not constructible. So basically, if there isn't right-of-way and the people that they need right-of-way from aren't willing to play ball, then the DOT can't require those improvements.
That would be really unfortunate. Yeah, that house is there, and that turn is rough, man. It'd be a shame.
There will be a right turn lane.
You're saying that the lane could be waived
If it's determined that it's not constructible.
So if the house that remains, that this is being built, let's just say around, if they don't concede some right-of-way one way or another, then you could argue that there's no room for a right lane.
I follow what you're saying. So you could get a right turn in there. It wouldn't be as long as the DOT recommendation was 50 feet with a 100-foot taper. That would take right away, it appears, and that's just from what I'm looking at. But you could do a shorter right turn lane than that, and still get the traffic out of it'd be a free-flowing movement. There's no opposing movement for the right turn into the site. So we wouldn't expect a lot of stacking in that right turn lane. So really all you need is something to get people out of the through lane. So it may not be the full 50 feet with a 100-foot taper, but it would still be able to get people out of the through lane. and DOT has this turn lane warrant chart that we use to determine if turn lanes are warranted at unsignalized intersections. And we use that chart, and the turn lanes actually aren't warranted based on the counts we took. But DOT can require turn lanes on roads that have ADT greater than 4,000. And it likely with those counts that you referenced, they have every leg to stand on to require those.
So they made.
I've got the approval from NCDOT right here that has the.
I'm sorry if I keep asking you the same question, but in the back of my mind, I'm wondering what's going to happen where they're somehow otherwise not required to do it. So this is a straight lane.
Permit, so that's the 50-foot right turn lane. And
Yeah.
Turn lane.
Okay. Okay. Helpful. Thank you.
You had mentioned earlier traffic mitigations or what are some mitigations that
Turn lanes and signals.
okay. What's the speed limit on the road there?
I believe it's 40. I've got to check my. Yeah, I believe it's 45.
I know it's 35 on the other side
The
of
other
that.
side, but I think what comes his weight.
Yeah. Yeah.
In other words, 60.
We've got it as it's part of it's 35 and part of it's 45, which is what they were saying. So.
Yeah. I still have serious safety concerns about Kennebec Road. Because that road, just a small road, could be a lot of cars on it.
And I guess what would I mean, if the speed limit was 35, would that how would that make a difference? Or
The speed's going to be however that turn limits, because I can't hit that turn at 35 miles an hour.
Okay, I don't drive on Kennebec very often, so I'm not.
I do. That's not a 35 mile an hour turn.
It's
Oh,
the
really?
Not if you love
500.
yourself.
I live off the road in
Okay.
Winston, and I'm gonna tell you, we have accidents all the time. You hear sirens going off all the time. It's very.
Just as most side streets in Andrew have become, it's a way around 55.
That's right.
It's to so you can cut off at the light, skip all the school traffic, and go around town.
Yep.
So it's
Okay.
and that's a fact.
The other concern I have, which is back more to the flow, and you might have answered it when she was asking about the signalized intersection, is again, if you're coming into town, and we can only speak to this one specifically, knowing that there are much more building being done in that area anyway. That's going to come down Junie Road, which dead ends at Broad Street, 25 mile an hour residential street that you could take right out to 55 and turn left if you want to risk it. Wouldn't suggest it. Cut right in front of the post office, and you look both ways, and you cut somebody off to get out that way. Or you go right up towards the north side of town, but if you're going to do that, you would go out the other way anyway, probably to avoid the school traffic. But I live back here too, so in my mind, I'm route that I'm taking. Or you go left down Broad into the downtown area. We already have a problem. I've heard reports of from almost every downtown street, Willow, Dunn, Poplar, at rush hour with cars cutting through neighborhoods to avoid 55, to avoid the big intersection. And so I understand that your study did not reach that far. It reached to Johnny, but for us, you know, when you get Johnny is one thing, but where do you go from Johnny? The answer is Broad Street. There's nowhere else
Right.
to go.
And I think something to keep in mind is so like you said, the numbers in here were based on 99 units. So if we look at that, it's that 73 number. So it's slightly more than 1 car per minute. And then when you disperse that traffic out, some of it goes left, some of it goes right out of the development. And then when you get to other intersections, some of them will go right. You follow what I'm saying?
Sure.
The traffic disperses.
73,
And if
we're
it's
talking
one
80 car.
I'm sorry?
So if it was 73 and we apply the 10%, we're talking 80 car, right? That would come down Johnny Road, and they're going to hit Broad Street in a 2-hour window.
It would be less than 80 cars that would, because it's a percentage of the traffic that goes out that way.
Okay, gotcha. That's fair. But I'm trying to do the math on how many more cars are going to hit Broad Street and try to get out of it. Well, yeah.
You understand this is painful. This is a pain point for us. So I appreciate you grinning and bearing it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like I said, I worked for DOT for 9 years. So I was in the Wake County District Office, and I was the Senior Assistant District Engineer, so I dealt with citizens.
You should be wary who you tell that to around here.
All right.
Can I
What else?
ask? So, I know with the change in numbers, do you know? Can anybody say when that change happened
For the unit count.
for the unit count?
Originally, it was probably 61 before, whenever we were originally doing the concept and playing with it and start manipulating stuff, and it just didn't get updated. But everything that was submitted through TRC in the town had the 38 and 73 for the total of 111. Because Sean would have started his process way early. Before we
Well,
ever went
March
to
is when he did his,
before we
so.
ever went to TRC, so he was probably just a mix up there. He never got the updated total count and the numbers, but the recommendation that they come up with the lower numbers was no improvements. DOT came back and said, "Oh no, we're going to require improvements, regardless of what your recommendations are." So at the end of the day, the additional units wouldn't have changed it. Wouldn't change the recommendation we're right now. So we're still left in a situation where we're going to have a left turn lane and a right turn lane for DOT to grant us a driveway permit, and also. Sean may have studied it. He may be able to speak to it. I don't know, but keep in the back of your mind, you got that NC 55 bypass coming that may help, may not help, certainly wouldn't hurt, but it may help improve the current situation that's out there now. The residents still have to move around, but some of the bypass traffic and all that's going through there now, that may help it.
So is that the? I mean, I don't know.
That's my personal
Well, right,
thought.
I understand.
Nothing to do with him and his DA.
I understand. So so with 65% of the traffic going that direction, that is the thought process. Is that's where they're going? Is the bypass?
That's correct.
So I mean, because it's right there. I understand the assumption.
And that's correct, but we don't assume that any of the existing traffic is pulled away from the bypass because
Right.
we have to look at the most conservative analysis.
Right.
And that would be a less conservative analysis to assume some of the traffic is diverted. There are times we do diverted trips, but
Right.
this would not be one of them.
All right, any other questions right now? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I don't know if I gave my 5808 Farrington Place.
Oh, hold on, let me write it down.
Yeah. I know all the DOT guys now too.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
So, just to kind of wrap this thing up and to bring it home, and then, like I said, I'll make myself available for questions. Sean's available for questions as long as the public hearing's open, anything that comes up. But left and right turn lanes per DOT, even though the TIA did not recommend improvements, that was TIA's the DOT's requirement. So in order for us to get a driveway permit, we're gonna have to put left and right turn lanes in to, that's not necessarily to resolve your questions as far as safety, but it does help as far as movement in and out and around that curve. Getting back to the storm pond question you asked earlier, the ponds will have fences around them. So we will fence around the ponds, and we can put a playground out there. Okay, so that would probably go in part of the general area where the dog park's at now. Probably kind of reduce that off to the side so it wouldn't be next to the pond, but we would get it. We would put some sort of a playground area in there. Client is agreeable to making that change. Okay, I want to quickly kind of go through these actions. I know y'all have to look at every action, and in order to get the special use permit, it has to be in the positive, just like the variance. If any one fails, then the whole special use permit fails. I just want to give you my opinion of it, and then
Before you get to that,
yes, sir.
forgive me for interrupting
Go
you,
ahead.
but I had another question that I'm
Yes,
not
sir.
sure who to ask it to because the applicant has not come up here tonight.
I'll do my best.
I'll ask the question, and then whoever feels most qualified to answer, feel
Okay.
free
Okay.
to do so. In our development standards, section 411.6.1 is intent, and I'm going to read that real quick because I can do that. Planned developments are intended to provide for creation of a well-planned environment through the application of flexible and diversified development standards. Land development standards. A planned development is intended to encourage the application of new techniques and technology to residential, commercial, office, and light industrial uses, which will result in a more comprehensive development arrangement with lasting function and appeal. It is further intended to achieve broader goals such as economic land development, consideration of environmental conditions, efficient street systems and utility network, and usable, attractive open space, and the general well-being of the town's inhabitants. And I was curious to hear from whoever feels qualified to answer this, how they believe that this project meets whatever parts of this intent paragraph that we could argue it does. I know that's a question, right?
Yeah, that's a question. I know what you're talking about there. I'm trying to figure out the best way to give you an answer, not necessarily an answer you want to hear, but the answer
Right.
that is correct in there. Fact of the matter is a development like this, like the Camden Place, like Spring Village, like Cotswold, and probably so many others that are out there are not possible without the special use permit. You do not have a zoning in the UDO that allows for something like this to come in. And so hence you have a planned unit development or go through the special use permit. Now what that allows you to do, it allows you to put kind of mixed uses. I'm calling it's still it's residential, but it's mixed use in the fact that you've got single family and you got some townhomes, which kind of function as multifamily. You kind of marry them together there, and you take, and what that intent is. What I hear whenever you read that, what I hear is a way to shrink up the development and provide more open space, compact your overall construction so that you got more usable open space for the general public. You don't have a 10,000 or 7,000 or 8,000 square foot lot. You've got these smaller lots and you got more common space, more open area available to the general public. So I don't know if that completely answers your question as far as there's nothing special about this that's going to set off bells and whistles. Oh, look, let's go drive by and look at Austin Meadows. It's a one of a kind. It's not a one of a kind. It's a development that we utilized the code as best we could and the ordinance as best we could to put forth this because that's the only way it's going to go in. That's the only provision that's allowed for it. And kind of going in history with what's kind of been done in the past, but there's nothing spectacular about it. There's nothing out of the ordinary. I mean, you've got it's a residential community with townhomes, and single-family homes is more of a walkable type community than you would typically have in most residential developments. It's the interconnectivity that you have, the interconnectivity that you tie back into Camden Place with, is whenever they tie back into Camden, I mean, you've got walking trails in there. That's a public community. It's expanding, it's helping them and it's helping us. So, but at the same time, I don't know that I can find an answer that's going to say, hey, look, this is the wow factor in here. That's going to put you over the edge, because there's not one. It's what you see is what you get.
Mm-hmm. So this is the only way to get a development like this in, is under this ordinance.
The current ordinance, that's the only way you
Yeah.
can get this in, is with a
Yeah.
special use permit. Otherwise, you don't have a zone in there that would allow you to do what we're doing.
Sure.
Or what we're proposing.
So I have not heard testimony that speaks to the application of new techniques, technology, residential, office, light, industrial uses, economic land development, environmental conditions, usable, attractive open spaces, and general well-being of the town's inhabitants. So I fully 100% understand that developers and builders, it's a business. It's how people make money. It's how
Right.
people live their lives. I'm in construction, not
Yes.
this big, but I understand
Right.
that there has to be profit so people get paid and can live their lives.
Yep.
To me, because this is the only way we can get this many houses in, is not covered under intent. And so I have trouble with that.
Right.
And so I just wanted to see if, because I know that's a really tough question to ask.
Yeah, and it's a tough one to ask.
And I
It's
think
tough,
you did a good. I think you held yourself
It's more
well.
tough to answer.
It is.
Especially me trying to answer to a board that's
Yeah.
going to give me the thumbs up or the thumbs down on
Right.
this thing.
I think you did a good job
but no,
answering,
like I said,
by the way, given
we're
what you
wanting
had to
to
work with.
Enhance the town of Anger. We want to leave it better than we found it. We've been here before. This is our either fourth or fifth one that we've done in the town, that we're proposed in the town of Anger. We were successful on the prior ones. Some of them are still under the construction. Some of them are still under development. I've drove through them. I think that it's a good product. I think it enhances the neighborhood. I think it promotes walkability. It promotes community more so than single family, than a row of single family lots strode out there with no interconnectivity. So as far as the intent and the wow factor, I mean, I think you have it. You've got it. But there's nothing unique about this that's not different than Camden Place or different than Spring Village. It's a residential community. It's not like we got a big commercial development that we can throw all these bells and whistles at. What are you going to do to houses to make them spectacular to a residential community, other than try to enhance your open space? You make it walkable. You put dog parks out there. You put nice landscape and make it where somebody welcoming, where somebody wants to go and sit outside versus sitting in the house and playing video games. You make the stormwater pond a trail around it, so it's welcoming to people. You put benches on the outside of it so people can sit around it. You connect it to other community that's got the same type of features in it, that makes people want to get outside and go and not hemmed up in their house all day long. That's what we're looking for here. And when they go outside, they're forced to be, because you've got townhome lots. There's not so much you can do on a townhome lot. So you're gonna venture outside of your lot. It's gonna promote neighborhood. It's gonna promote camaraderie. It's gonna promote getting to know your neighbor. I stay out in Sampson County. It's rural Sampson County. I mean rural, where you can just barely see your neighbor. I mean, it's different strokes for different folks type deal. So you don't have that deal. This is a place where somebody go out there and go trick-or-treating. They could start at one end and go to the other end. When I went trick-or-treating, I had to get in the car and I had to drive a couple of hours, and I might hit 5 or 6 houses.
Yeah. You bring up a really good point for sure on the community, because I live on Broad Street in an older neighborhood. It's all single family back there. And we have kids. And yeah, our first Halloween was really sad. Man, I mean, we walked that whole
I can't
corner
even get
of
them to
town
come to my house to get candy.
and
I can't get candy away.
2 people answered the door. So yes, I believe you're correct when you say that this promotes community.
Yep.
However, I would argue
Yes, sir.
that even with the same street, even if you took all the units out of here and just looked at the street layout,
Right.
right? And you turned all these townhomes into single-family lots that were similar to the ones on the southern end of the property. You wouldn't lose any of that sense of community. I think it's hard to argue that townhouses give you more sense of community than a similar street layout, which
Right.
what this street layout does, for trick-or-treating or community or riding your bike to your friend's house.
Yeah.
It's great for that, but I don't see how that would change if they were single family. And that's just something that's rolling through my
I
head.
understand.
Yeah.
I completely understand, and I think that section there that you're reading in the ordinance, it allows the flexibility to provide that intent. I don't think it's a requirement of a special use permit that you got to have some kind of a wow factor inside of it I think that gives you that's the purpose of special use permit, is give you the flexibility to promote that in the event that you had something like that you could promote.
Right.
So, like I said, I'd be
But that's not what we have-
outside
that's
of
not
this
what we
meeting
have
here.
here.
Outside of this meeting here,
Yeah.
when this meeting's over, I'd be glad, as far as going forward on stuff, entertain anybody that's think they can come up with something that something new and inventive that we can look at in the future going forward. I'm all
Sure.
ears.
It almost sounds like you're
Yeah.
It almost sounds like I lost my train of thought. Just like that. Whew. Almost sounds like you're saying that it does not meet the intent here. That you don't have to meet the intent, and so it is what it is. It doesn't meet the intent, but is the only way we could build, 111 units on each.
You said it.
I feel bad even saying that, but
Yeah.
I want to acknowledge that I understand this is not the first time you stood in front of.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. It's the first time I stood in front of y'all.
That's
y'all
right.
Y'all were never here.
So I think
it's my first time sitting in front of you. So.
Yes. Well,
I think you're understanding that the temperature is a little bit different now.
yeah, and
And
knew
we
that coming
learned
in. I knew that coming in.
earlier in the year that we have 23 developments and 4,000 lots approved in the town of Angier, and
Yes,
only
ma'am.
2,000 of them have been dug on. So we are seeing, feeling, hearing all the growing pains that we're experiencing. And
Yes, ma'am.
you've been a part of that. So
No.
I think you can appreciate,
Yes. Y'all are exploding. There's no question. There's no question you're exploding. And the Angier today is not the Angier it was 4 years ago whenever we come in here the first time, or 3 years ago when we come in here the first time. Things change, things evolved, and you either evolve or you get left behind. So what we're trying to do is
not get left behind.
not get left behind, but we're trying to go in there and fill that gap in between a development that was obviously stubbed out here to go somewhere, and instead of it going into going into a row of single families or bigger lots or whatever else that does not seem to be cohesive with the general feel of it. It just kind of completes the picture, so to speak. It's like that when you get that 500-piece puzzle and you got 2 pieces missing, you look all over the house and you can't find it. Here's your 2 pieces. We're just completing the puzzle.
All right, you wanted to walk us through, and I
Yeah,
interrupted
now,
you.
Has anybody got anything else? Otherwise, I'm gonna jump in here and give you my opinion, and then y'all, whatever other question you have, just fire away, and I will do my best to try to get you an answer,
All right.
or make one that sounds good.
Hey, so far, you have words to say for everything.
Item A there on actions required, it says requested use will or will not impair the integrity of character of surrounding or adjoining districts. I'm saying it will not impair. This was a couple months ago. It was annexed. It was on residential. This is a residential area, residential community. We're not introducing satellite annexation or satellite or spot zone or anything like that. We're kind of picking up with what's already there and completing it. So I'm saying that we are not impairing the integrity of character of the surrounding neighborhood. The requested use will not be detrimental to the health, morals, or welfare. You're putting in a townhome, you're putting in single family and townhomes where everything we're doing is going to be in accordance with the current UDO. It's going to be in accordance with state and federal guidelines. So, and we're going to be served by public water and sewer. We've already conferred with the town. The town has the capacity to serve it for both water and sewer. So in my opinion, that we will not be detrimental to the health. We've looked at it with DOT. We've looked at the traffic. You've heard from the traffic engineer. Necessarily, may not always agree on it, but it's done to industry standards. In fact, we put a report out to industry standards. DOT went above and beyond that and asked for right and left turn lanes. So you're going to get above and beyond the current industry standards on that. Adequate utilities, access streets, drainage, sanitation, other necessary facilities have been made and are being provided. They're available. Talked about it a few minutes ago. Again, we've gone through TRC. We've met with planning, met with public utilities, fire marshal. So in my opinion, you got the utilities there. That should not be an issue. The adequate measures have been taken or will be taken to provide ingress and egress is designed to minimize traffic. We've talked about that as far as the traffic access. You're going to have 2 points of access. You're going to have Kennebec Road. You'll have the loop back through on Camden Place. So we've got access for fire marshal. We've met DOT guidelines, going in above and beyond what typical industry would. So in my opinion, that should not be a deal killer there either. Last item, the special use permit shall, in all other aspects, conform to applicable regulations of the district which is located. I'm not going to read the whole thing out. Y'all know what it says, but that's the only way we're going to get this thing approved. This is the first step, okay? This is step one, or step two. Step one was getting it annexed and rezoned. We've gone past step two. Now we're at step two to get the board of adjustments approval on the special use permit. Assuming that we can get a thumbs up from everybody tonight, or at least a majority of everybody tonight, then we'll move forward with the construction drawings. We'll put all this stuff, we'll sort of pen meets to paper. We'll work with staff. We'll work with getting our local permits, and we'll start bringing this thing to life, because right now it's just lines on paper. Okay, but unfortunately, this is something we have to go through to get to the next step, and I'll ask you tonight to consider that whenever you, in your deliberations, that you consider the stuff that was presented here for you, present the stuff, the questions, discussions that we've had. We look forward to bringing this thing to life, completing that picture, completing that puzzle, and filling in the blanks, and as a result, something that Andrew can be proud of, not something you want to drive by and turn your head away from as you drive by it down the road, especially in that curve that he was talking about. You certainly don't want to take your eyes off the road on that.
He was looking at the beautiful house, end up right up in that guy's front porch.
But like I said, thank you for your time. Thank you for your consideration. And like I said, if you got any more questions, I'm right there.
Does anyone have any questions for him before he sits down? Yeah,
Thank you.
You're a good sport. Thank you. All right, with that, I'm going to close the public hearing, and then we will deliberate again. Oh, no. Did I miss anyone else that wanted to speak? That felt like good closure, so I just went. All right. Thank you. You guys have anything you want to start off? And for me, it's not so much the quantity of traffic, how it relates to the state. And
Because
that
they're very
turn.
narrow. Very,
Very narrow in this entrance, right up against that.
And it's right there. If that curve was not there,
Mhm. I agree. Maybe a condition.
but they at least, that's,
Well, the turning lanes help a lot, but still, and when I'm talking about this, I'm considering health, moral,
oh, yeah.
right? Like you
Yep.
can't, as far as traffic flow and traffic timing goes. I mean, that to us in detail, lots of answers for my questions. So the traffic creates not much extra, but the safety concerns that exist. Eric, what do you have? You always have good thoughts.
So I guess, so you mentioned, I guess some of the traffic mitigations, adjusting for open space, what would be the next step? Or like, if he said, yeah, okay, we'll do all the things, is it one of those things, would he need to come back with a new plan and then we vote on it?
I think
Or-
we would just list the issues as part of the approval.
Okay.
Right? The open space, which we talked about a lot, is a concern too. There's, the retention ponds are not really spaced. The walking trails are great. I think that's cool. Like I said earlier, I think the street layout and the walking trails, be a cool place to live, know your neighbor. But no other open space, like you pointed out, other than the north end of this property in Dead Man's Curve. And that doesn't seem like a great place for a playground to me.
Yeah.
And I understand that this specific site plan could change anyway. Is that right, Jeff?
Slightly.
I mean, it could.
I think there's some.
Because really, we're talking about a unit count ultimately.
Yeah,
And then the other
they could
condition.
increase the unit count. They can slightly modify some streets. They can't decrease open space
Yeah.
without coming to you all. So there's some slight modifications
Yeah.
the staff can do, but major modifications would have to come back to you all.
Yeah. But I just don't see a lot of open space in general. I brought up the intent of this ordinance and put so much weight on it because I think it does relate to the health, morals, and welfare. That's what that paragraph speaks to in and of itself. Why it's not a requirement, which I understand, but at the very beginning of this is why we did this. So we could encourage this. And not been getting a lot of that kumbaya application that the intent was designed for. But to look at this and see, I get that the only way you could build a subdivision like this is through the PUD, even though it doesn't meet intent, which is not required to meet intent. But the intent of the subdivision is to get a lot of housing. Now, it's not fair to say as many as we can because yes, they've all been townhomes. They could have all been packed in there. These are just things that are weighing on my mind. I don't see much to argue with on A. I mean, there's a lot of farmland around there. You could lean on that, but Candid Place is right next to it. Just my opinion on A. B, I have trouble with. C, D, and E. I don't have a big problem myself. On the second, curious to know what you guys would. Pause it so everyone can collect their thoughts. So I tend to jump too fast and somebody needs to ask or say something.
Yeah, no, I one of the things I was looking at before was the 4.11.61 that you read about the planned unit development intent. And that was one of the things, so a well-planned environment, and at the very end is usable, attractive open spaces, which I don't see a whole lot of open space. And when I think of well-planned, I think of, like, it doesn't have to be, eye-popping, it was mentioned earlier,
Right.
but to me, it seemed like it was well-planned to put as many homes in there as, like there is not a whole lot of open space. And so, so that's,
Yeah, I think what you're saying my interpretation of that is well-planned in the interest of being for the general well-being, the purpose being for improving community
Yeah.
by including some of the other things that are listed before it, which would be ample open space. He spoke to higher concentration of homes in the interest of creating more open space, which I don't see in the case personally.
Probably every developer believes they're improving.
Yeah.
Let us not think. They don't fully believe that this is an improvement,
Yeah.
regardless of our.
Yeah, and I'm all for multifamily. I just want it to be more than just a place you sleep or a place you can live. And kids can go out and run, and at least run not in the streets.
Yeah. We understand that multifamily is a part of Andrew's future, period. It has to be in the interest of affordability, because we also want affordable housing. I think we all kind of understand part in some way. But even townhomes get in the definition running away from. All right, any more input?
You don't want any input.
Yeah, I do. That's why I'm waiting so long awkwardly. Okay, great. All right. Well, if there's nothing else to add, then Jeff, do you mind? Oh, it's already up there. Stay seated. Great.
Reading your mind.
Hey, you're anticipating my needs. I appreciate that, Jeff. All right. What's the vote for this one? It's simple majority, right? So we need 3 out of the 5, and we must approve all 5 for this to be granted. So let's go through it. If you believe that A, the requested use will not impair the integrity or character of the surrounding or adjoining district, if you agree with that statement, raise your right hand. Opposed? 4-1, so we'll move on to B. If you agree with statement B, that the requested use will not be detrimental to the health, morals, or welfare, again, if you agree with that, raise your right hand. Opposed? That's unanimous. We'll move on through, just so we can complete this. For C, if you agree that adequate utilities, access streets, drainage, sanitation, and/or other necessary facilities have been or are being provided, if you agree with that, raise your right hand. Unanimous. For D, if you agree that adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide ingress and egress so designed as to minimize traffic congestion in the public streets, again, if you agree with that, raise your right hand. Opposed? 3-2. For E, if you agree that the special use shall, in all other respects, conform to the applicable regulations of the district in which it is located, except such regulations may, in each instance, be modified by the Board of Adjustment. If you agree with that statement, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. So we got hung up on B. Now, what do you need from us as far as documentation?
Well, I think Jeff will write it up as an opinion.
Okay.
I guess there could be some discussion if there, accommodations that could be made that y'all think would resolve your concerns. I guess we could have that discussion with the developer.
That's fine. We could talk, can we talk about it here a little bit?
Well, if
Or
there
should
are
we
any
do that?
conditions you would want to place on it, now would be the time to have that discussion.
I don't,
Or, we could have that discussion.
I don't mind having a brief discussion, since they're here, so they can hear, our opinions directly. I don't personally see a lot that can be improved because of its location, placement, Kennebec. Right. Man, I wish they had the property next to it and could move that entrance a little further down. But that is really what I got hung up on. Most was the proximity to the turn and how that would relate to the welfare. Yes,
Can I ask a question now since the vote's over?
Dan?
I understand that you feel the way you feel.
Sure.
And so I still want to move forward with the project.
Right.
So I guess what I'm trying to get is an understanding of what I can do to help get you over the hurdle for item B.
Right.
Is item B is it stem because of the driveway and where we're connecting to Kennebec? Is it something more? Is it more open space, more central open space? I mean,
Right.
I want to bring something back, but I don't want to bring something back that is I missed the
Of
mark
course.
either.
Of course. And so I don't know either if this is something you would bring back under this application or the new ordinance. You figure that out with Jeff. The new ordinance, by the way, is not super scary as everyone makes it out. I think it's better. Because you talked to us about the stuff directly before we even get to this point. What I noticed people saying that we had problems with B was what I had mentioned about this entrance and proximity to Kennebec and kind of indirectly how it's tied to density because there are so many. And I say indirectly because, if there are half this many units, I would still have concerns.
I was going to ask you, if I had less units, my driveway didn't change, do you still have a problem with the driveway?
It sways it in a better way, but it still hangs in the back of my mind that traffic coming out of a driveway right here, period, is not an ideal
Because unless I get
situation.
more property, I feel I can't change that driveway.
Right. I get that. Open space was talked about a lot. I think we like the pathways. But if it had some more open space, it would help move the needle on morals or welfare.
Okay.
And if I'm wrong, you guys can chime in. Or if you have anything else to add, please. Not the Bob Show. That's the best I could tell you right now. And because we're kind of on the spot here on how we could improve it, but I'd be willing to talk to you guys about ways to improve it.
Can we do that since it's quasi judicial? I mean, can we speak about it outside of this hearing?
Right, so that's why I'm kind of leaning on Jeff and Dan on that, because we really like the new ordinance and that we don't have to tiptoe and dance around who we could talk to about what and what we could say.
I think that the discussion of where to go from here probably is not best had with the Board of Adjustment, so to speak, but with Jeff and maybe myself after and figure out, with the new ordinance, where we want to go.
Now, I know rezonings are a year gap before resubmittal. I'm assuming since this is not a rezoning, I don't have to wait a year before I can bring a new plan back before some kind of board.
I think if there's a material change, you can bring it back anyways.
Okay.
As long as there's material change.
Yeah. So I'm going to leave it at that.
Yes.
Because this is quasi judicial and we're all terrified of it. So in the future, it will be better. This is the last one, right? This is it. So from here on out, it'll be a better situation, I hope, for everybody. And I would encourage you to come back and work with us in that setting. All right. If there's nothing else, then I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we adjourn.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. We are adjourned. Thank you, guys.